Hello and welcome to another episode From the Beginning here on Heaven We're Thinking. Today we're continuing on in Exodus chapter 13. We're going to be finishing off this section, verses 17 through 22. So I'll read it and we'll get right into this week's discussion. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said if they faced war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the Israelites swear an oath. He had said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. After leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. So though this is a short section, we can see several different things in this section and learn more about this story that we've been talking about. We've seen how God has done amazing, mighty, powerful works on display, not just for his people, but also on display for the Egyptians to see. And we've seen this contrast he's constantly drawn with the plagues between his people, the Israelites, and the Egyptians, and how he has had to humble Pharaoh. Pharaoh has had a hardened heart. He's refused to let God's people go. Well, after the death of the firstborn, the plague of the firstborn, we finally saw Pharaoh say, enough's enough, go, leave this place. He finally seemingly got it, although we're going to see in next week's discussion that he didn't quite get it. But for now he's got it, and the Israelites have been told they can go. Not only have they been able to leave, but God also blessed them and gave them favor in the eyes of the Egyptians, that they were able to plunder the Egyptians with getting articles of clothes, getting gold, silver, and they were able to not just leave, but have great wealth as they left. So we see here that God has been blessing these people, providing an amazing way for them, a way that they could not have foreseen on their own. Yet we see here that God doesn't just stop there. In verse 17, we see that God is constantly doing things that are different than the way we would do things. We see here a great example of that is that God didn't lead them through the shortest way. We often in our lives, at least I do, I want God to lead me on the quickest way from point A to point B. I see a goal, I want God to lead me here to there on the shortest way, no turns, no complications, no nothing. I just want to get there right away. And I think we often are there on a daily basis. We just want whatever it is that we want it right away, especially if it's something that is a godly thing and we think, well, God's promised me this. He's told me that he's going to do this, so I'm just going to make it happen as quick as possible, because obviously the most obvious way is the right way, or the shortest way to get something is the right way. Well, that's not the case. We see that here, that God chose not to lead them on the shortest way. He could have done that. He could have made it super easy, but he didn't do that because he knew that they would have to face Philistines in that country. And if they faced war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So sometimes God prevents us from going the shortest way in our lives, from getting that thing we want, getting whatever it is we want right away in the way we think is best, because he knows ultimately far more than we know. He knows what is to come. He knows the present, the past, the future. We don't. We're here in the present. And so God knows that if we get what we want in the way we think we should have it, it doesn't always lead to what is best and what is godly. It often leads to complications, like it would have here, where they would have faced the Philistines. So God chose them to lead them around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. So we see that the Lord was preparing them on this way. Not only did he send them a different way to protect them ultimately, even though it wasn't the easiest way, he chose to do this. They were also prepared, ready for battle. So we see that God is constantly doing amazing things in our lives and the lives of his people, even when we can't see it. That God is protecting us from things that we can't see. We just see that we want something right now. We want the easiest way in our lives. We want to get whatever job we want the easiest way. We want to get whatever promotion we want, whatever relationship. We just want something right away the easiest way. But God has things in store for us, better things in store for us, if we're patient and rely on his timing and his path, his purpose, his plan for our lives. So we see that's the first thing that strikes me here in this section. We also see that Moses was faithful in carrying out the command that Joseph had given to the Israelites and made them swear an oath when he foretold how God was going to rescue the Israelites. Long before we see this story of Moses. Joseph had foretold that God will surely come to your aid. Then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. Again, Moses is honoring those who have come before Joseph, one of the pillars of the family of House of Israel. Then we see that the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night a pillar of fire to give them light so they could travel by day or night. So the Lord isn't just having them leave Egypt. He's not just sending them on a certain path so that they'll avoid certain trials, certain challenges that they would face if they didn't follow his way. He's not just sending them out on their own, and he's not just sending them out with Moses. He is personally going with them. His presence is going ahead of them. He is with them personally because he is a very personal God. He's not like the gods of Egypt that we just saw. We saw the competition. God totally destroyed all the lowercase gods of the Egyptians and all the impersonal gods that the Egyptians had. Instead, this is a very personal God. He has differentiated himself, not just with his power, but also with his personality, who he is, and his connection, his relationship with his people, that he isn't just some God far off in the distance. Many times I think we think that God is just someone far off. Many people will call him the man upstairs. He's someone up in the sky. That's not who God is. He is personal. He is a relational God who wants to be deeply connected with you and I on a daily basis. We just have to actually respond to that. We have to put in the effort to have a relationship with God. He's there. His presence is with us. If we are Christians, we have the Holy Spirit living in us, and we have the very presence of God going with us day and night to guide us on our travels, just like we see here where the Lord went ahead in a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire so that they could travel day and night. The Israelites, as they went on their travels, we have an even greater presence. We have the presence of God with us in our very hearts, our very lives, if we would just pay attention and actually tap into that presence, tap into the power of God by connecting with God each day. Instead of treating him as some far off God, then we would see amazing things happen, and our lives would fall into place much, much better if we were actually following the Lord's guidance instead of our own guidance. As we saw in the beginning of this and the end, bookending this little section, we see how important it is for God to guide us, how important it is for him to lead our way. And we'll see that time and time again with the Israelites, how important it is that God steers the ship, that he leads the way for us in our lives. So that's my challenge for you this week. Let God direct your life. Trust in him. Connect with him. He wants to have a personal relationship with you. Make sure you spend time each day growing that relationship by spending time in his word and spending time in prayer and spending time just following after who he is and applying his word to your daily lives. As always, join us next time for another episode of From the Beginning here on Heavenward Thinking.